Hello, how are you all this week? Sean Ferrick here for Trek Culture, and of course we're going to go through this episode of Lower Decks as well. But in the usual vein of everything, we are kicking ass with subscribers because you are kicking ass with subscribers. Thank you so much. Yes, even you. I see you. This is another reference-heavy episode. For example, our first up of the week goes barely a minute into the episode. We have Captain Freeman just hovering through the corridor of Cerritos with a lovely, Season 7 TNG masks situation going on. She has been taken over, all of the ship is being transformed into an old temple. You know, that old shit. It's now at this stage where everyone's just like, okay. And even the engineers who are getting rid of all the temple afterwards are so tired and so worn out that basically Freeman decides they need shore leave. That becomes one of the main kind of gags of this episode. And I did enjoy it very, very much so, because obviously, you know me, I love an old reference here and there, and I also love watching engineers suffer. I seem to be the only one who enjoys watching the engineers suffer, because Dr. T'Ana is really worried about them, to the point where she says that Billups is a f***ing pile of stress. I'm sorry, that's an up. I just love the way she deals with people. I just love her bedside manner. But of course, that leads Freeman to going, okay, we definitely need to give them some time off, which sets up the storyline of the Dove. The other plot of this episode revolves around both Delta Shift and, of course, Beta Shift. There is competition going that apparently some quarters have come up. There's 4 quarters have come up on deck 1. This is great. What are you going to do? You're going to get our usual 4. They're going to put their name in the lottery. They're going to get those quarters. Everybody's happy out. Along comes Delta Shift to be like, ha, nah. Thus sets up our healthy rivalry. In fact, Mariner is so frustrated by Delta Shift, who I'm giving an up to, by the way. We like Delta Shift. Well, we don't like Delta Shift, but we do like Delta Shift. But she's so frustrated that she says, oh, I wish they'd just go off and join the Maquis or something. Wait. Oh, what? Oh, hold on. We are going straight to Cannon Watch.
Hello, Sean, and thank you very much, and welcome to Cannon Watch. You will note that in this episode, there was a statement that Delta Shift should go and join the Maquis. That means that in the 2380s, the Maquis still exist in the mind of Mariner, which means this is uncontrovertible proof that Ro Laren is still alive. We never saw a body, we never saw confirmation of death. That means Michelle Forbes' Ro Laren will be returning to Star Trek. You heard it here first. Back to you.
Thank you very much, Sean, for confirming what we all already knew. I'm going to address all of that storyline in a couple of seconds. Just on the engineers one more time. Freeman goes into the main engineering, asking how things are going with the cleanup. Billups is a broken man. He is ready to just shut down at this stage, to the point where Shax basically startles him, and he turns around and he wallops him across the face. And of course, what does Shax do? But he's just like, it's all right. You let it out. You need to. And Billups is there breaking down, gently slapping him. It was very funny, not for the violence of it, but for the fact that if there was one character in Lower Decks who'd be like, you need a slap? Slap me, come on, you'll feel better. It's definitely Shax. Shax understands how extreme emotions can help people kind of come out of a funk. So actually, and the fact that he's so caring, it's kind of like the return of the baby bear thing. I love Shax so much. I'm upping the fact that Shax gets slapped, but I'm kind of upping Shax as well, if that makes sense. Of course it makes sense. You're all with me on this one. So this, of course, sets up the fact that, right, all the engineers we transfer over to the Dove, which is a completely spa ship. It's all relaxing. We have an Adosian with her lovely 3 arms is taking them through everything that they need. They see there's mud baths. They see there's a room for puppies. We'll come to the kittens. And then, of course, there's the room for if you're a Klingon and, you have a Mek'leth. No one's going to tell you your time is up. That was an up from me. That was just so silly. But also that's so, how does a Klingon relax? By kind of taking the Shax route of just getting it out of your system. And even as they're standing there, the Klingon flips a Mek'leth straight at the dividing glass. I'm a simple man. I like visual jokes. On this ship, what we see is what we kind of expected to see, is that once the engineers all arrive, their version of relaxation ends up being building a relaxation machine when they're supposed to be getting massages and, you know, kind of chilling out, and they're hiding cucumbers underneath. They have these mood bracelets that basically tell them their level of stress and everything. It's like they're actively refusing to relax. And this ends up winding Freeman up so much that she explodes. So on their mood barrier, you've got green is good, then you've got yellow, then you've got red, and then you've got black. And what they do is they stress her out so much that she goes to a black, and she's like, oh, I'm trying so hard. Down. Now, the reason I'm downing this is that this is not like it's the most stressful thing Freeman's experienced this season, let alone in the show overall. I mean, let's think about it. She was arrested, pretty stressful. Mariner is her daughter, pretty stressful. Dealing with the Rock people last week, pretty stressful. And of course, Captain Mayer, pretty stressful. Going back then, we have the whole events of Crisis Point, although that falls under the Mariner thing again, pretty stressful. Dealing with Pakleds in general, Second Contact. I would have looked, we miss an opportunity for a great scene of just, right, ream off everything that Freeman has been through from the first episode to this episode, and yes, that would absolutely, you know, tip up the amount of stress. Not that I'm saying let's let her feel like a balloon and then explode all over people. That's not really what we're trying for either. We're not, you know, we're not sadistic like that. We're not into kittens. It just felt like that could have been a real funny kind of, you know, reaming through everything that we've seen before. And yeah, so I was a bit like, oh, okay, right, that was... I'm actually going to be honest, I'm going to finish out with their storyline there because it's quite, you know, that's kind of it. Freeman gets very, very stressed. The puppies don't work, and then the engineering team, they build her a machine that forces her to relax. And that's kind of that storyline over. So back aboard Cerritos, you have this competition between Beta and Delta Shift to get this room. Now, Delta Shift are overheard by Tendi that they're planning on cheating. They're going to, you know, fix the lottery that their names are going to come out on top. She informs Boimler and Mariner of this, and Mariner's like, well, we should totally cheat. And then Boimler's like, yeah, I'm on board for this. And Tendi goes, ooh, I am excited to explore a morally grey area. I just love the way she states it. It's just so funny. It's so silly. It's so Tendi. Boimler plans out this route through Cerritos, and it's going to take them through Jeffrey's tubes, and it's going to take them through waste extraction, and it also is going to take them through one of the holodecks. They go to the holodeck and they see that T'Ana is running a program in there, and they're like, ooh, what could this be? Well, I mean, naturally, it's T'Ana, so her version of going, you know, to relax is she robs a bank with Shax as they play Bonnie and Clyde up. Oh, it's so them. And of course, T'Ana is completely throwing herself into it, and they've got Tommy guns, they're holding up the bank and everything. And of course, the three of our guys are just like, oh my god, what's going on? And then in the middle of everything, T'Ana goes, ha, computer disengage safety protocols. Now, thankfully, Shax just goes, whoa, freeze program, with a bullet just there from Boimler's head. You know, T'Ana's going, kiss some hot lead. And Boimler, when he moves it, he burns his finger on it, like, oh. Now Shax does turn around in the middle of all this and say, we never even talk about our feelings. And T'Ana's just like, what? I'm here with a Tommy gun, you want to talk about feelings? And he's just like, you know what, like, you never ask me about my dreams. And then delivers the immortal line, I died and we never even talked about it. And that gives this scene a latinum up. Yes, I do like the jokes, of course, that we never really know how Shax came back, but also, I really want to know how Shax came back. Even the emotional side of it. Now, think back to Star Trek IV: The Voyage Home. I know, bear with me. Spock is sitting there and he's computing time warp to bring them back in time. McCoy walks up and, addressing the fact that he shared Spock's Katra for a while, was just like, you know, how's about a little philosophical debate? You know, come on, Spock, you really have gone where no man has gone before. You died. And Spock goes, without a common frame of reference, I would find it impossible to discuss this. And McCoy goes, you mean I have to die to discuss your thoughts on death? I think it's almost like a blueprint for this. That Shax is like, he is the inverse of Spock. He really wants to talk about it, but he has no one who will understand. And it's quite sad. It's funny because it's Lower Decks, but it's quite sad. And it's just like, oh. T'Ana's way of answering this is that, I suppose, in the McCoy type situation, she doesn't have the frame of reference. But what she can tell him about is how, while on the Ogonquit, she lost her tail. And that for now is the end of that story, because Tendi, who was eavesdropping, gets yanked down a Jefferies tube by Mariner and Boimler. Did anyone else really want to know what was going on and how she lost her tail? Their route brings them to what seems to be a swamp. And I mean, as Tendi says, this is a hydroponics bay, it makes perfect sense. However, as they arrive in the swamp, there's the body of an officer sitting there, skelefied. What? Trellium down. How long has that been sitting there? So I saw this, and the first thing I thought about was that TNG episode, season 7, Eye of the Beholder. How long was that body sitting embedded in the nacelle for before someone went, probably should have checked that, yeah. Good thing no telepath walked near the nacelle in 7 years. But still, right, so kind of similar situation here. So how long has that body been sitting there? Has the ship ever undergone a baryon sweep? If so, well, okay, that raises more questions, right? Starship Mine, Season 6 TNG. Baryon sweep is basically designed to clean the entire ship. Now, it does that by killing, kind of life, bacteria, and one can assume that it vaporizes them. Otherwise, you've got a coffin ship full of like rats and, flies and things like that. So, now a problem with Starship Mine is, why wasn't that skeleton vaporized? Still organic material. So that's one issue, but right, that's an issue from 30 years ago. We're not going to address it today. Has the Cerritos ever gone a baryon sweep? And if so, the body? So I just thought it was a bit of a down. And also, does no one check the hydroponics bay, ever? Like, how long has that person been sitting there? Did no one miss him? Has someone been ringing in sick for them for the last 7 years or so? I don't want to serve on the Cerritos anymore. I'm scared. The rest of the scene itself is quite funny. Mariner and Boimler end up getting quite high on hallucinogens. Tendi is immune as an Orion. She rescues Mariner from the egg she thinks she's sitting in, and, Boimler's there trying to escape, and it's really quite funny. They get out, they get into oxygen, and, Tendi says to Mariner, sorry for hatching your egg, and Mariner's like, no, it's fine, it was just really warm in there. I really love that. That was just so silly and funny. They eventually get to an intersection. And who do they bump into but Delta Shift, who are doing the exact same thing that they're doing. They're trying to get up to the main computer so that they can change the order of the lottery and they can cheat. And it's a little bit predictable, but you can see what's going to happen. They start to identify, because they have to wait for a particular hatch that only opens for 10 seconds once an hour. And they start to identify, they start to chat, and they start to trade stories, and they start to become friends. And then they say, look, let's put all of our names in together. It's fine. We support you. You support us. You all know what's coming. The hatch opens. Delta Shift says, screw you. Runs through, and that's that. And Mariner is rightly pissed. And so is Boimler. But this shows us the return of bold Boimler. They talk about what's going to happen on the ship, they finally get to the computer and they're like, we're going to enter it. Well, how long are we going to enjoy it for? Because one day soon, Tendi's going to be a bridge officer, Mariner's probably going to be drummed out of Starfleet for one or all of her infractions, and Bold Boimler is going to end up getting himself killed with his new viewpoint on life. I loved it. I loved that entire thing. I loved the callback to Bold Boimler. I really, really enjoyed that. Now, he needs to keep an eye out for other things like Cranch running around, but yeah, that worked for me. So they choose, no, we won't cheat. They go to the mess hall, and you can be damn sure Delta Shift didn't have an issue with their conscience, so they, of course, get the 1 quarters that was available. It wasn't 4 quarters on deck 1, it was 1 quarters on deck 4, and they stuck a bunch of bunk beds into it. Quite clever, really. Rutherford is not very happy when he gets back from the Dove, because he's like, I thought we were gonna, yeah. And yeah, no. The final up of this episode goes to a joke that was set up quite funnily, yes, I like it, earlier on, which is Churolivia. Ransom has a girlfriend made entirely of churros. Churros are delicious. Churros make you think of cinnamon. Churros generally are not engaged in loving relationships, but hey, who knows? And so, at the end, there is a discussion of Ransom keeping Churolivia hydrated. With that aside, we then go to my final down of the episode. This episode was, look, it was quite good. I enjoyed this episode. It was silly. This one was a bit more about the one-liners than about the story. The two stories together mostly made up the 23-minute runtime, but overall I think this was more of a kind of an airplane situation, like let's get as many jokes into each scene as possible. And I enjoyed it, please don't get me wrong. But if I was to go like, oh, what episode would you rewatch? Probably wouldn't stick this one on. I would never turn it off, but I probably wouldn't choose to watch it again. Now, I can hear the clicking and the clacking. I love Lower Decks, and Lower Decks is so good that this is one of those episodes that's just like, oh yeah, it's grand. You know, still really good. Look, it's not that bad, you know? And look at the scores as well. You know, Lower Decks on a not as good day is still better than a lot of the other just television that's at the moment. So here I am absolutely covering my ass as to why I'm downing the fact that it was more of a collection of one-liners than an overall cohesive story. I do feel that way. I do feel it merits a down, but it's Star Trek Lower Decks. It's fun. It's great. And although this is going to sound really kind of like contradictory, the fact that, listen, there was, you know, all of the one-liner gags got a bit much. Come and join me at Cetacean Observations. I didn't say I didn't like the jokes. Anyway, we have TNG episode Masks as referenced right in the beginning. We have, of course, the Maquis are referenced in the beginning. We have an Adosian is running the Dove. An Adosian, of course, being introduced in the animated series with the character of Arix. Also turned up season 1 while Boimler was sort of semi-transported. Lovely. Then we have a Benzite is sitting in the mud that came from Tellar Prime, which is a reference, I think it's a reference, to the episode Cost of Living. Cost of Living Crisis. From the Next Generation's 5th season that featured, of course, Roxana Troi struggling with the decision to marry one of the many husbands and also bonding with Alexander. Thus featuring the immortal scene where you have Michael Dorn sitting fully immersed in mud going, so we just sit here? I really like that episode. I'm gonna watch that episode again. Also in that mud, we have a Gallardonian. I need to get better at reading my own handwriting. A Gallardonian, which of course was introduced way back in season 1 of Lower Decks. Now we have the Klingon throwing the Mek'leth at some targets over on the Dove. We finally have another reference to the fact of Shax dying and coming back and no one's talking about it. Now, in orbit beside the Dove, we have an Andorian ship as well, and we have a ship that looks to be at least inspired in part by the Olympic and Daedalus class vessels. I love at one point, Freeman is getting so wound up at how the engineers are just always doing their job. They're like a bunch of damn Geordie LaForges. Love it. And of course, we have a lovely reference to stellar cartography. That is everything for our ups and downs this week. It was a bit of a lighter episode, very much enjoyed it. What did you think? Let us know in the comments below. As always, thank you for the support that you show this show as well. Thank you so much. Hop on over to Twitter, give us a follow at Trek Culture, give myself a follow at Sean Ferrick as well. You look after yourselves until I see you again. Make sure that you live long and prosper. Our friends in Ukraine, stay strong, keep fighting. We are with you. Everyone, have a wonderful weekend. Make it so.